Well, the Opposition's Assistant Treasury spokesman, Senator Mathias Cormann, is with us in the studio now. Many thanks for joining us this morning. What's so wrong about this idea of a bank guarantee? Because we've wanted it, we've given it to taxpayers. Why not fund it?
Well, Kevin Rudd and Chris Bowen and the Labor Party are completely out of control. They've made a mess of the budget. They're desperate for more cash. They're always desperate for more cash, and they will always come up with another excuse as to why they need to raise more revenue. And this is just the same situation here. In the past, it was the mining industry, and then we had the car industry. Now the banking industry. Who's going to be next? Ultimately, this is all bad news for consumers.
Why shouldn't a levy be imposed on banks to protect them, protect depositors in the, albeit unlikely, event of a bank collapse in the future?
Well, the question should be, why should a levy be imposed? And of course, the reason the government is imposing yet another levy, they've now imposed more than 40 new or increased taxes, is because they've run out of cash in their budget. What is the problem they're trying to fix? I mean, we've just gone a couple of years ago through the global financial crisis, which Kevin Rudd said was the worst crisis ever, and our banks went through that in a very healthy position. What is the risk he's trying to fix? The truth is he's trying to fix the budget mess that he created. The Labor Party has spent so far $220 billion more than they've raised in revenue. They're trying to play catch-up. They're always looking for more cash, and this is just another example of it.
But this was a recommendation from the Reserve Bank, from the International Monetary Fund, and by the the Prudential Authority. Those are important people to listen to.
Look, I mean, as I say, the Labor Party is always going to be very good at coming up with an excuse to explain yet another cash grab.
No, but they didn't come up with that. This was recommended for them to do.
Well,
why attack the banks? It's not a popular thing to do.
So why are they doing it now? Why are they doing it now? The truth of the matter is that Kevin Rudd, 6 years ago when he became Prime Minister, inherited a very strong budget position. He promised that he would be an economic conservative. Instead, he was a big spender he was addicted to wasteful spending. He always had to play catch-up. He still wasn't able to balance the books. And of course, you know, we've had the Alcopops tax, the tax on the North West Shelf gas project. We had the flood tax, the mining tax, the carbon tax. Now we've had the tax on the car industry, now the bank tax. I mean, who's going to be next? I mean, he has come up with one new tax after the other, and he always comes up with a good explanation as to why it's justified. The truth is we need less government spending so we can have lower taxes. We need to actually have a focus on being more competitive internationally. Why not have an area where we are not imposing a tax that others are imposing?
So the opposition opposes the tax, and if you're elected to government, you'll scrap it.
We will make a judgment, and we will make an overall comment on what is on the table once we've actually got a proper announcement. So we're hearing.
If you feel so strongly about it,
well,
I mean, clearly you don't like what the government's doing. If you're elected to government, based on what you've said to us, you should scrap the tax.
Well, I'm pointing out the obvious. I'm pointing out the obvious that over the last 6 years, we've had a government that has been wasteful. We've had a government that has come up with one new tax after the other. They're always casting around for more cash. That is a bad track record. And, of course, this is just a continuation of what Kevin Rudd did first up as Prime Minister. But we will always, instead of just giving a running commentary on speculation, we'll make a judgment once we see the whole package, the whole announcement. And, of course, we've gone through a proper process in assessing all of that. I
have to tell you, most of our viewers are supporting what the government is doing there. Are you happy, given the banks are on track to post collectively $26 billion in profit this year? Are you happy to be seen as somebody supporting that?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm concerned about is the impact of these sorts of tax grabs by the government on the cost of living and on the pressure that it's putting on families.
Banks can clearly afford to pay.
Well, I mean, let's see what the banks do. Let's see what the government does today. Let's see what the banks do as a result. And I mean, ultimately, though, as your previous guest indicated, ultimately it is always consumers that end up paying the price for increased taxes from the Labor Party.
We heard at least one bank chief executive give his thoughts on this yesterday. Let's hear now from NAB Chief Executive Cameron Klein.
If there were proposed changes to levies on bank deposits, would you have expected to have received a proper briefing or consultation before that was announced or leaked?
They don't give up, do they?
I'm quite comfortable with the process.
There you go, Mathias Cormann. One of the big four's quite happy.
Well, good luck to him. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, like, just look at Labor's track record. They inherited a position where there was a budget surplus, there was no government net debt.
Then we went through a global financial crisis.
Actually, we went through a period where Australia had the best terms of trade in 140 years. Even now that the terms of trade have come off, they're still 15% higher than they were at the best time under the Howard government. I mean, the government has introduced more than 40 new or increased taxes, and they're still not able to balance the books. And the truth is, so why do they have to have an economic statement today? Why do they have to have a budget update? It's because in May, Wayne Swan did what he always did. He aggressively and dishonestly overestimated the revenue he was going to collect. He spent all the money he thought he was going to collect, which he was never going to raise. And now, of course, the government's got to play catch-up because there's this big black hole in the budget again.
Can we just, on that point, and with the statement coming out today, Saul Eslake just earlier had said to us that he would not be advising the government to be slashing and burning and to looking for savings. He would not be advising the government to worry too much about budget deficits because this has become a hang-up in Australia where, in fact, we don't really have a problem.
Well, we do have a problem, and that is that Australia's heading in the wrong direction. I mean, we've got to put the budget back onto a credible pathway back to surplus. The current government promised a surplus in 2012-13, and of course, instead of a surplus, we've got a $20 billion deficit.
Why do we have to be the only country in the world that runs a surplus?
Well, we're not the only, we wouldn't be the only country in the world that runs a surplus, is number one. And number two, I mean, we are an economy, we're a resource-based economy where there is more volatility than in some other economies. And of course, when the times are good, the government over the last few years should have been running strong surpluses so that we could be in a more resilient and a stronger position when the times are actually more challenging again. And what the current government has done, we are not in as strong a position as we could have been and as we should have been, and we're heading in the wrong direction. The only reason we're not in a worse position compared to others is because we had a stronger starting position and because we had the benefit of the best terms of trade in 140 years over much of the period of the current government.
Mathias Cormann, thank you very much for your time.
Always good to be here.
Thank you.